Is Shedeur Sanders the next Tom Brady? Stay tuned for the fascinating results. Welcome back to the All Pro Football Data Show. My name is Jim Coburn, and today's episode we're talking about is Shedeur Sanders the next Tom Brady? This has been a topic of discussion as different media outlets and people are kind of saying the comparison is real. But I think this video is really going to highlight the data of Shedeur Sanders. We're going to add some elements. If you watched the previous video this year, I added some more elements to Sanders' data that I think is very intriguing to discuss. But also, I'm going to do a straight up comparison between Tom Brady in terms of how he tested as a prospect coming out in 1999 compared to his positional peers. And I'm going to look at Shedeur Sanders and kind of see, is there a similarity here? Now, the most obvious similarity between these two players is their love of watches. As everybody knows, the classic move that Shedeur Sanders often does is flex the watch. His little celebration. And Tom Brady is a big fan of watches. He has $1 million plus watch collection, as you can see here, various styles. He loves watches. There is a comparison there from that perspective. Sanders likes to flex his watches. Tom Brady does, although when Tom Brady was playing, of course, he wasn't showing his watch off after touchdowns. The basics of it is this. We're going to get into the data for Sanders. The first place you have to start, Shedeur Sanders has a 31 percentile mobile quarterback score, 98 percentile in terms of best passing efficiency, and then 95 percentile in terms of his career passing efficiency. Based on these statistics, he hits most of the All-Pro, Pro Bowl, and starter thresholds at the position, with the exception of his mobile quarterback scores. Sanders is not that mobile of a quarterback. He's not a Lamar Jackson, and there's nothing wrong with him not being that type of quarterback. It's just that he's more so a passer. He's a classic pocket passer. He's going to make plays with his arm, but he also is not as mobile or as impactful as, say, a Patrick Mahomes was, especially when he was younger. Now, another area to look at in terms of Sanders is his age and competition data. This takes a look at his age, which he's in the 32 percentile in terms of age compared to other quarterbacks taken based on their age on draft day. He's a little bit older. His MEAV score, which is his mobile expected approximate value score, is 82 percentile. I think his age and stuff really helps him out. That's why he scored so high in that, even though he isn't the most mobile of quarterback. And then his PEAV score, which I think is probably the most important score to really look at, which is his pocket passer expected approximate value score, is 89 percentile. Now, another area to look at in terms of his data, of course, is his first down, second down, and third down ability. And this gives you an idea of how well he performed in these different downs and distances. In terms of first down situations, he was about a 55 percentile in terms of his percentage of 15 plus and 25 plus yard plays or throws were typically not on first downs. He did have a decent TD percentage of 73 percentile on first down, and then his first down conversion rate on first down was 68, which is solid. But as you can see, when you get to second down situations, he improves. His overall data improves with an 84 percentile overall second down ability score. And then in third down situations, this is his best score that he's had, by the way. It's not an average of his scores, but just his best score. He had a 94 percentile third down score. His overall ability to make big plays, big throws down the football field, and completing those throws, and also his TD percentage. Third down situations are his money down. He makes his biggest plays in third down situations, and not necessarily in terms of first and second down situations. So that can give you an idea of what his style of play is as a prospect. It's not really predictive. It's more so descriptive. Now, another area to look at in terms of Shedeur Sanders before we get to the metric comparison between him and Tom Brady is critical situation analytics. This takes a look at his ability in third down situations, red zone, and sack rate. This is based on the averages for his career. The basics are this. Third down situations, his average was 84 percentile. That's really great. Red zone situations was 84 percentile, which is really, it's good. It's not great, but it's a good number to have because a lot of times that is a very underrated skill set, is a quarterback's ability to make plays in the red zone. But the one area where there's a big red flag is his sack rate. He has a 10 percentile in terms of his sack rate. Took a lot of sacks at Colorado. There's no getting around that. I know a lot of people want to talk about how bad the offensive line was at Colorado, but even when the offensive line got better at Colorado, he still was taking a lot of sacks. a lot of punishments. A lot of times, players who have sack rates that are this low that make it at the NFL level are players that are more so rushing quarterbacks, like, say, a Cam Newton or even a Lamar Jackson, for example. The modern day example of a pocket passer who had a very high sack rate, of course, is Joe Burrow, but he was in the 36th percentile in terms of his collegiate career versus Shedeur Sanders. I understand that he's a type of player that is still making big plays, that third down situations, second down situations, etc. He's still making big plays, but he's taken a lot of sacks. That is a big red flag in terms of his data. But let's get to the main juicy meat of this video, of course, which is the metric comparison between Shedeur Sanders and Tom Brady. These scores are based on their ability for the era in which they played. So I'm not comparing Shedeur Sanders straight up to how Tom Brady played in 1999 because statistically speaking, things were different back then. They didn't have as many spread offenses. Football was a lot different back then. You have to compare a prospect like that to his positional peers, which is what the bulk of my data is based on. The BQS, the CQS, all those scores are based on how they performed in the era in which they played. That way I can see if a guy is a potential Dan Marino. Even though if you look at Dan Marino's stats today and compare to today in terms of how he performed in college, you would think, dang, Dan Marino was terrible, but his completion percentage and everything else was phenomenal for the era in which he played. Bottom line is this: comparing Sanders to Tom Brady, the mobile quarterback score was 31 percentile for Sanders. Tom Brady, it was 13 percentile. That's one area where there is a similarity there. Sanders is not a big rushing quarterback. He's not a mobile quarterback. He just isn't. He's going to be a guy that's going to be in the pocket and make plays with his arm, not necessarily with his feet. Tom Brady was a similar situation. He was not a mobile quarterback. He's never been a mobile quarterback, even in the NFL, other than like a sneak play here and there. Now, the best quarterback score for these two is very similar. So 98 percentile for Sanders and then 98 percentile for Brady. Both of these quarterbacks are very similar from that perspective, which is interesting. Then when you get to career quarterback score, Sanders had a 95 percentile and then Tom Brady had a 90 percentile. Very similar as well in terms of their career quarterback efficiency. Now, where some differences come up is in terms of age and competition. The age of Sanders is in the 32 percentile. Tom Brady, when he came out, he was in the 60 percentile. So Sanders is a older prospect coming in versus what Tom Brady did when he came into the NFL. MEAV score, 82 percentile for Sanders and then 52 percentile for Tom Brady. The biggest reason why Sanders' MEAV score is a little bit higher is because there's some additional metrics in there, such as third down conversion rate and red zone data, which Tom Brady doesn't have. Tom Brady scored the way he scored based on the metrics that are available for the time period that I have for him. That makes these metrics a little different, but for the most part, you get the idea that Tom Brady, in terms of his MEAV, 52 percentile, he's not a mobile quarterback. Sanders, similar situation. He's not really a mobile quarterback, but he does have some positives here or there that kind of pushes numbers up a little bit. Now, the pass score. The pass score takes a look at production, age, strength of schedule, and strength of team. That number for Sanders is 75 percentile and Tom Brady is 90 percentile. There's no getting around this. Tom Brady did what he did in terms of his BQS and CQS score at Michigan, which was a much tougher level of competition compared to what Sanders faced, and it was a stronger team compared to what Sanders was on. Regardless of the different debates you could have about Sanders and how great he is or how good he's going to be, the bottom line is Sanders did not play at a big-time program. He played at Colorado. I think when you look at it from that perspective, there is that difference there. Is that Tom Brady put up elite numbers in terms of quarterback efficiency on a great college football team with tremendous competition that he had to face week in and week out. Sanders, on the other hand, did not face that. That's a big difference between the two that I think cannot be ignored. Now, in terms of third down and red zone situations, you can ignore the comparison there because I do not have data on Tom Brady in terms of his ability in terms of third down situations in college. It's not really relevant in this discussion. What is relevant is the sack rate. Tom Brady's career sack rate at Michigan was in the 65 percentiles. How often he was sacked as a quarterback was 65 percentile. Sanders is 10 percentile. So regardless of how you feel about Sanders, you want to get that aha moment. That sack rate is very, very high. He took a lot of sacks. And as much as I would like to look at the positives here and kind of go, he's going to be good. Every number is great except for this one number. That is still a red flag. It's a number that scares you. It's a number that makes you want to really dig into the film and kind of see what happened. Because again, if he has that sack rate at the NFL level, that is not going to be good for the offense. It's going to be kind of like Justin Fields level ability. It's not a good situation. Or how Caleb Williams performed as a rookie, which hopefully he gets better. Now, the expected approximate value score for both of these prospects was similar to a certain extent. Sanders had an 89, and then Tom Brady had an 82 percentile in terms of these particular metrics. That is them in a nutshell. The biggest takeaway is the pass score. Now, the true comparison, the real comparison that I think really fits Shedeur Sanders the most is Caleb Williams. And here's why. When you look at Caleb Williams compared to Shedeur Sanders, Caleb Williams is shown to be a little bit better as a mobile quarterback. He makes more plays with his legs compared to Sanders. He's about 82 percentile. But the BQS score is 98 for Sanders and then 97 for Caleb Williams. The career passing efficiency score is 95 for Sanders and then 93 for Caleb Williams. The age score, Sanders is a bit older. He's a little bit older than Caleb Williams coming in at 32 percentile for Sanders and then 65 for Caleb Williams. The MEAV score is a little bit higher for Williams at 93 compared to Sanders at 82. The pass score is 75 and then 91 for Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams faced tougher competition and was lights out in terms of his overall data there. In terms of third down situations, Sanders had an 84 percentile, Williams had a 78. So they're very similar from that kind of perspective. Red zone ability, 84 for Sanders and then 90 percentile for Caleb Williams. And then when you look at the sack rate, 10 percentile for Sanders and then 42 percentile for Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams took less sacks compared to Sanders overall in his career, but Caleb Williams still had a high sack rate overall. And then the PAV score was 89 percentile for Sanders and then 90 percentile for Caleb Williams, which into account their as pocket passers from that perspective. Overall, I would say the better comparison for Sanders is Caleb Williams. It's not a exact comparison. It's not the best comparison ever. I think there are some similarities between him and Tom Brady, but I think when you really take a look at him for more of a modern comparison, it would be more so Caleb Williams because of his sack rate and because of his ability in critical situations. It's very similar to Caleb Williams from that perspective, if not a little worse in terms of sack rate and those other sort of things. That is kind of the nutshell for Sanders. I think as a prospect, he's solid. He's a solid NFL quarterback prospect. Is he a generational talent? A lot of people want to say he's the next Tom Brady, and I laugh at that because when Tom Brady came out, nobody wanted to draft Tom Brady high. I'm surprised he even got drafted based on the thoughts at the time of Tom Brady. I know that a lot of it is a mental game. Tom Brady had a lot of success because of having a great team around him, but also because of his mental ability, his mental toughness, and those other sort of things. But I don't think you can really make the comparison that Sanders equals Tom Brady because Sanders is a Tom Brady level prospect. Then Sanders would have to be taken probably in the 6th round to 5th round area and go to a team that already has an established quarterback and then beat them out and then go on a really long Super Bowl run and be an underrated prospect. Based on Tom Brady's overall data, he had a 90 percentile in terms of his pass score. His production, his age, his strength of schedule, and strength of team was a elite. He had elite numbers. NFL teams didn't like him because of his size and because of his athleticism, but he was truly an elite prospect that they just kind of passed on because they don't really know how to evaluate quarterbacks. But Sanders is a little bit different. He played lesser competition and didn't really perform at an elite level against that competition. And that's something that is a valid criticism. But that is a general comparison there. I think between Tom Brady and Shedeur Sanders, the verdict has to be out. I don't believe Sanders is Tom Brady. I think there are similarities. They both like watches. They both enjoy not being mobile quarterbacks and rushing and more so staying in the pocket and making plays. They both probably do well in third down situations in terms of when the pressure's on and they really need to make a play, they can make those plays. And I think the film justifies that. Anybody who's seen Shedeur Sanders can see these ridiculous plays where he's getting hit in the pocket and still delivering a really great football. But there's also a lot of sacks. There's also a lot of questionable throws. There's also the offense he was in that was a little bit more spready and a lot of check downs and a lot of shorter plays for him. But overall, that is the comparison video some of you guys have been asking for. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/jcoburn. Also, check out my Twitter at Geometrics. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.